Well, Craig, Anna, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me about Yellow Jackets.
Thanks for having, yeah.
People are so excited about this new season, and I
Oh, good.
guess if where did you start for the music for this? Because like, I mean, this is a show that has a theme song. This is a show that has a lot of music. This is a show that has a lot of needle drops. So I have to assume that like, but I'm curious as to like what was the thing that you started working on first?
Do you mean on season one, like from the very beginning,
Oh
or
yeah.
this season specifically? Got it.
Oh, the first season, yeah.
Well, our dear friend, speaking of Wet Hot American Summer, Teddy Shapiro, um, uh, who co-composed Wet Hot, who with whom I co-composed Wet Hot American Summer, he scored the pilot for Yellowjackets. And then there was, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe 2 years between the pilot and the show getting picked up to series, at which by which point Teddy was no longer available. He had other stuff going on. And so I got a call from our mutual friend Karn Kusama, who directed the pilot, wonderful director and friend. And she invited me on board, thought I might really jibe with the creators. We call them Jab, Jonathan, Ashley, and Bart. And Anna and I had just finished working on a couple different shows together. One which was a sort of indie comedy called Shrill, which we loved, and another one which was like an hour long. I don't know, what would you call it? Like a teen, like a
Well, it had that vibe, but it wasn't really a teen show, I don't think. Or
no,
was
it
it?
did have that. I don't remember. But so we had just finished that show and it
It's
like sort of
kind of like a serial drama.
yeah, and it sort of tipped a little bit into darker, fun music. Um to the point that Anna and I were like, "Oh my God, we want to do something like super gnarly and like even horror-y."
And I
And
don't like horror stuff. So that for
Mhm.
me, that was, I guess I've got all the horror on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. Yours is on the inside, mine is
Yeah.
like stylized. Um and so I called Anna and was like, "Oh, we gotta do this."
Hmm.
And then we took the sort of template that Teddy had started, which was a lot of female vocals and percussion. Caroline Shaw was the featured singer, wonderful composer and singer on the pilot. And so we just started from there. And then as the show, uh, episode by episode, as it became clear what the show, the identity of the show, right? Which the pilot really almost that, and then it just keeps, exploding and unfolding and mutating and getting crazier and weirder. And so we really just went from there and followed our gut, but stuck with obviously the heavy on the vocals, heavy on female vocals, heavy on tribal stuff. And it continues to be a real sort of experimental sandbox.
Yeah.
Now, given like the sheer number of needle drops in this, do you all have like a favorite one that you've gotten like because I know like when composers working, like sometimes they like to like match that the tone or the key that it's in. Is there like a particular like needle drop that you've gotten to that you've seen in a script and been like, "Oh, I know exactly how to come out of that."
Anna?
I mean, yeah, which season? I mean, yes, for
Oh, do you
sure.
have one per season? That's great.
I'm trying to think of the first season, which feels like a little bit of a blur because it was a while ago. I know there was a Buffy St. Marie song
Hmm.
that they used that I thought was perfect, and it was such a great combination of it, like touched on our score, but it was also just very unique and really cool.
God is
Um,
alive, magic is afoot. That's the
exactly.
song. It's a Leonard Cohen interpretation.
And I mean, I don't think I can reveal this season yet
Yeah, yeah.
because
Um,
I think my favorite one is toward the end of the season. It hasn't aired yet.
yeah, yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm trying to remember all the needle drops. We go, we're 90s snobs. So we go in and out of like judgment about, um, about needle drops on all the shows we work on. We're like,
Of
well,
course.
we would have chosen da 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 da. But one of the things that's beautiful about Yellowjackets is Jab encourages uh the editors to choose songs. So a lot of times things are not in the script. And they'll sort of become sort of integral to an episode as they're editing. And
But then
interesting,
also they've got, the music supervisor's incredibly, Nora Felder.
yeah,
She's incredibly creative as well, like
yeah,
on a deep level and adds to that, I
yeah.
feel like.
And Jonathan and Ashley and Bart also have,
Yes, of course.
especially Ashley and Bart are music nerds. And they're a little bit younger than us, so
Mhm.
like the 90s music, which would have been our peers making the music, which is why we can get like bitchy, snitty, and snobby about it. Like, well, they should have used the That Dog song. They should totally have used the Shudder thing song. And I'm like, okay, you know.
Don't say
But
that,
I know. I mean,
but they
it's
should.
cute. Yeah. But Ashley and Bart, like they would have been teenagers, right? So that was like their fucking music.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So they have depending on your age, working on the show, you have a different relationship to the sort of 90s music, which is really fun. And oftentimes the ones that are sort of um, they're ones that are just surprises because sometimes it's a little bit of a goofy song, even if it feels like maybe a little bit of a goofy song, it just works gangbusters.
Yes, it does.
And it's just like, oh my God, that's genius. My favorites are like the Jeff,
Oh,
Shauna's husband song and the Walter, Misty's boyfriend songs. Like, there's a little bit of what's that band? Let the
Buck
bass
Cherry.
hit the floor.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Drowning Pool, the
Yeah,
song
like
they used.
drowning.
Oh, the song they used in the trailer for this season that I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
Yeah.
got a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people very excited.
Yeah, like drowning pool or yeah, the more the more sort of weird metal stuff on the one hand, and then the like show tunes and
Showtime.
stuff, which just does so much uh for character development in like 20 seconds.
It really
Just
does.
you just understand Walter because he listens to Barbra Streisand and Slayer.
So, Craig, before we started recording, you were referring to the fact that you and Anna think of this as a band. What's it like for your band to have Alanis Morissette cover one of your songs? Like, how did you react when you found out that was going to be a thing for the second season?
I mean, we thought it was really cool. She wanted to do a her a cover of the theme song, and when we first heard the cover that she did, it was so cool.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was like
very different
yeah,
from ours, and just it was like I love when someone covers a song that I have something to do with because it's just so fun to hear someone else's voice do it, and I just love it. So that part of it was awesome.
and
Now,
it was one of those situations which happens a lot. Um it happens a lot on the show, like beginning with like Teddy, Karen, Anna, that so we just have these very sort of community connections to Alanis, like her um keyboard player and sort of, I think, musical director, I'm not sure, but they write songs together on a lot of her new records, um, is a part of our crew. So sometimes he'll do arrangements for us, or we'll collaborate on songs for things. He was involved in Wet Hot American Summer. And so it just felt really sweet and kind of magical and fortuitous when Alanis wanted to do this.
And we were happened to be working with him specifically at the time on our original song last season.
The one for John Cameron Mitchell.
Yeah, the one that he sang,
Uh-huh.
the one the bird sang.
Yeah, and so it felt it's just there's a sort of synchronicity to all of it that's really um reassuring, because we really can get in the wilderness when we're in the wilderness of Yellowjackets for so
Yeah.
many in a row. And so little gifts like that from the universe help us feel like, oh, everything's okay. We're totally on course. This is wonderful.
We don't live there. We live here.
Yeah, exactly.
Given that the show takes place in like two time periods and it's got two sets of like actors portraying these characters and you have all these musical drops, do you look at it as like the 30 years ago, the 90s part of the show and the modern day part of the show as being different, or like what is the difficulty in making those two eras seem unique while also tying them together like with a musical narrative as to complement, the one unfolding on screen?
Well, season one, well, as each season has progressed, the lines are increasingly starting to blur between the two timelines musically, as we're starting to see how all of their behavior and trauma is interconnected. So particularly in season three, and I talked about it a lot as we were going, timelines are starting to seep into each other. So whereas in season one, we had a pretty specific palette for the wilderness, um, which which would occasionally incorporate 90s elements, a grunge bass, or kind of like an industrial beat or something like that. Um, it was mostly the wilderness relegated to more natural scritchy, scratchy sounds, whereas the modern stuff felt like it had crossed the century line into the 21st century, just sonically. Um, but now it's all starting to smear together, much more hallucinatory, and it's kind of skitzing out.
Yeah, and it also, certain characters have kind of certain sounds or themes that come up when they're on screen, and we started to kind of connect that either to the future, like, oh, here's the past coming, or vice versa, where it's like, oh, right, that's where this started. And
Mhm.
that's been a really fun way to kind of connect those two different scores to with each other as the stories evolve.
Mhm.
That's been fun. We could to do it musically.
Yeah, just to what Anna's saying, they're like increasingly we're like, oh, this is like they're like musical origin stories,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, this theme, it turns out, started in the wilderness. So
Yep.
let's plant it kind of retroactively in the wilderness, even though we in season one or season two, we may have established it as a strictly adult theme or sound, for a different character. And it's like, oh no, that actually started here. So let's wildernessify it.
It's really fun to dig that deep. And sometimes we even catch Jab by surprise. I'll be like, oh, well, that's where Misty's what trauma started with that. And they're like, oh, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always digging for that stuff. I love it. It's a treasure hunt.
So you sort of alluded to the fact that like you were very like when you were working on this, you were very much in this. Um, how do you balance that with your own separate musical projects? Given that like Craig, you recently released a solo album, Anna, you're still playing and recording with That Dog as well as other projects. Like, how do you like given the sort of intensity of Yellowjackets, like make like go in and out of this to make your own music?
I mean, I was two timing at the beginning of the season. When we first started, I was working halfway through another TV show. I don't know if I could have done both in the last half of Yellowjackets because there's kind of a surrender to the wilderness that happens when we work on the show. When we get a few episodes in, it's like, okay, there nothing else really exists other than our families, essentially. Um, but I do think it's good when we have an something pulling us in another direction just a little bit so we don't get too far, lost in the spell of the wilderness.
Yeah, it's pretty demanding and all consuming. And it was interesting at the premiere party, the Jonathan of Jab um made a little speech beforehand, and he mentioned something about how everyone he talked to who's involved with this show at a certain point gets lost in it and sort of has to sort of surrender to it. It's really quite
Mm,
it's pretty all consuming as from the first episode of any given season, I would say increasingly and even exponentially as seasons have gone on. It's it starts off at about the peak level of any other TV show in terms of
yes.
what it demands, time and attention wise, and then it just goes from there. So
Whereas with other TV shows, it starts out and then you get to that place, but then you crack the code and there you go. And you just keep going
plug in,
through
and
it.
then you plug and play, plug and play.
Yeah, that is not how
No,
this works at all.
no, not at all.
And
It,
I mean, it always catches us by surprise. However, hopefully with our next season, we'll just go in knowing what we're in for.
yeah, just to try to remember, like, we liken it to, um, like, what's the term? Like baby brainwash. Women have like,
Object permanence.
what's that?
Object permanence.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Like that's the when something's there or not.
Yeah, yes, but also the thing of you know,
Postpartum.
yeah, well, no, not put well, there's that, but also how difficult pregnancy and certainly childbirth can be, and there's a lot of never fucking again. There's no pot, and
Oh,
then 2 months later, it's like, oh my God, let's have another baby. So we have to actually remind ourselves because by summer we'll be like, oh my God, that wasn't so bad, right? That was like not bad.
no,
That was, I
it was a
mean,
lot.
that wasn't so hard, right? It was
No,
like
I mean, there was a
crushed
point
it.
like at episode 8 where I was like, "Oh, we've gotten to the plateau. Like this is great. Like we are hitting our stride." And then with 9 and 10, it was like just it's like, "Whoa."
Yeah,
The show is like parenthood. It's like just when you think you've got it figured out, you get thrown a curveball and you have to start over with a huge like mind meld. It's just it's pretty incredible to work on. However, it's a little taxing.
that's a lot.
I'm sure you've got folks very, very excited for the end of the season now.
Oh,
Good.
I couldn't type it anymore, I swear. And I don't even like scary stuff. And it's so good.
Well, I want to thank you, Anna and Craig, for taking time to talk to me today. It's
Sure.
been
Course.
delightful. And I'm a big fan of both of your work.
Thank
Thank
you.
And
you.
yeah, Yellow Jackets season 3 is streaming right now.